Okay. Uh, that's it from the adaptive perspective. If you all have any questions, please drop them in chat. I'll pass it over to Sylvia.
Hey Sylvia, you're on mute.
Thank you, Chelsea. Let me start over. Hi, everybody. My name is Sylvia Gonzalez, and I'm a financial manager here at the group. And I'm going to be going over a few changes coming with the 2026 R1 updates for supplier invoice, award events, grant budgets, and expense reports. The first one that I want to go over, and that's I picked it first because I think it might create a little bit of bottleneck once this goes live, since the deployment consideration is low, it's going to be automatically available upon release. So it's going to be in your tenant as soon as this is set up. And this is a duplicate supplier invoice error. For 2026 R1, you will be getting an error when you are creating a duplicate supplier invoice. And this will happen in the following scenarios. If you're creating a supplier invoice from a purchase order or a project-based order with the same invoice number, or if you're importing or submitting a supplier invoice through a web service that matches an already submitted supplier invoice number. So whoever's creating your supplier invoices might start getting this error messages if they're not aware that this is a new functionality in Workday. The way that Workday looks at these errors is going to look at your supplier's invoice number, and it's going to match it to an existing number that is not in cancel or denied status. Okay. It also is going to look at anything that's empty. If your supplier invoice is empty, it's going to check through your supplier, your invoice total, and your invoice date. And then you will get that error message. A few resolution steps for whoever's creating your supplier invoices. If you want this invoice to go through, you can create an asterisk at the end of the number. So let's say your supplier invoice number is 1234. You can do an asterisk at the end and it will kick the business process, right? Or you can start letting your people know that, hey, maybe you need to run this, find supplier invoices, flag those supplier invoices that are duplicate so that further research can be done. So if we go to the next screen, I already tested this in a test tenant. And this is what you're going to get. So I created an original invoice with supplier invoice number 1234 and my PO 1234. And when I created a copy of it, I got this error message that says enter a supplier invoice number that isn't already in use on another supplier invoice. So this will help you with your data entry errors. You won't have duplicate invoices anymore. But at the beginning, I could see some problems, bottlenecking, because people might start getting all those error messages and you're going to have quite a few supplier invoices in error. So this is something just to be aware that is going to happen automatically. Okay, if we go to the next one. So for award event business process cancellation, currently you don't have the option to, once you start your award event, you don't have an option to cancel it. Workday with this release is going to enable you to configure your award business process. So your business process admins will have to do this task so that the users have with the right access can cancel the process. That means that when you're creating an award, you now go to the related actions and you will be able to cancel that event. Now, keep in mind that this cancel option only works when the status of that award is in progress. Okay, that will cancel the business process and no changes will have to go into the system. So, what business challenges does this solve? You're able to now cancel awards that are in progress that in the past you had to go through the denial process. What you do need to do though, you need to go through for the deployment. I consider it low, but you still need to go to your business process security policy task, find your award event, and then go who can do this entire business process. You're going to locate that cancel, then add the security group or groups that you want them to be able to do. And like always, don't forget to activate your pending security changes. If you do nothing, though, understand that you won't see in the related actions that award canceling functionality. Okay. I think for people that do awards on a daily basis, this can be very, very helpful. My third one, this one is my favorite one for from the 2026 R1 release. And the reason being, if any of you are currently doing true budget checking for awards, not just using it for reporting, but a true budget check for your awards, the budget check at total grant level is going to give you some flexibility to be able to check things in a more aggregate level versus the very, very granular level that we currently have. So this release feature delivers the ability to have a virtual parent-child under award type. So we currently have that under the financial types for budgeting, right? But now it's going to be available under your parent-child relationship. Workday will now aggregate all your tag budget lines and spendings across all periods to the budget check at that total grant level. So let's say you have an award with a grant work tag that you have $30,000 in total. And currently you have it, your award budget set up at that line level. It could be company, fund, spend category or object code, and your grant, right? So you have 2, 3, 100 lines, depending how many lines you have with your amounts. However, within this award, you're able to be more flexible. You don't have to be spending by line item. You could spend by grant total. You're not able to create that parent-child relationship to budget at the parent level, which will be company, let's say company, fund, grant. You bypass that object code or that spend code granularity. The way this will be set up, you will have to go through your award under plans, and you will have to create your parent plan structure with the correct aggregate dimensions. Once you do that, then you're able to check for those award periods at the total grant budget. This level of effort, I would say it's medium, because you do have to set up your parent-child relationships, and you need to make sure that all of that is enabled in the tenant, and then make sure by award that everything is set up correctly between that hierarchy of parent and child. So this will probably reduce a lot of your manual efforts that we'll see when we get that budget fail by that granular line, right? You might have to create a budget amendment, move monies around. This will probably give you a lot more flexibility to control your business needs. So if we go to the next tab, you can see here an example of what I'm talking about. So you might have your sponsor, which is a government agency for your company, and you have that $30,000 award. So currently you are budgeting by company, spend category, grant, and I have in materials 12,000. I have in consulting services, I have 20,000. And then I create an invoice for my materials and supplies against that budget of $10,000 for $12,000. So my actuals is now $12,000. In the past, you would get that budget fail because I'm over $2,000. But now, since I'm truly just checking at that aggregate amount, is going to let it go through. With the caveat that now you have access to more comments from Workday, you will be able to see your aggregate totals in the next work tab. You can see your aggregate budget check exceptions. You can see I have a total amount of 30,000. I have spent 12. I have $18,000 left over. As always, in Workday, anything with blue, you can check your detail, make sure where is that detail living. You can see what spend or object code it was spent. But overall, your budget has been open for that grant. So things to do consider, though, you do need to make sure that you have security to create those parent-child relationships. That will be under your functional domain of budgets. And just make sure that you have under budget general, that you have the correct security to create those virtual parent relationships. Okay. Which is right there in that, with that budget general. This is where you would check your security. And then my last one is a simple one, but I think it can help when creating expense reports. So this is a travel booking record visibility. And this one, you will be able now to hide from your employees all of that travel records that they might be bringing over when they create an expense report, which kind of bogs down the end user when they're creating their own expense reports with a lot of information. They're not able to find their credit card transactions, their expense items easily. So now you will be able to hide that from the expense report from the end user, so they won't be able to see that anymore. However, the admins, whoever's managing the expense reports, you're still able to run reports. You're still able to see all of this granular detail from your employees. For this, it is a low consideration of deployment, because you only have to go into your edit tenant setup financials and make sure that your checkbox under expense options is not checked, which we'll see in the next screen. But this will allow your expense report users just to be able to create expense reports in a more efficient manner. So here under edit tenant setup financials, expense options, just checking your tenant that the display travel booking records is not checked. If it's checked, then they will continue to be able to see all this visibility. And this is only really applicable for anybody that has travel booking records, okay, for expense reports.